Is there a best substrate for planted aquariums? In my opinion, most definitely yes. It's Aquasoil. In today's video, I'm going to cover Aquasoil in quite a bit of detail, talk about some of the differences between traditional substrate types, go over the pros and cons, and cover some of the big brand names out there. Hopefully you find today's information useful. It's gathered from many years of experience as a hobbyist and professional working in the industry. So there's basically 4 different types of substrates for aquariums. That's going to be the inert types, sand and gravel. And yes, you can grow plants in sand and gravel, but it's not the most ideal substrate type for them, right? Like, you think plants need nutrients, so if they're digging their roots through an inert substrate like rocks or sand, then they got to be taking their nutrients from elsewhere. Maybe some debris settles in the gravel, and that's where they can pull some of that out, or fish waste in the water column. So it's not that plants can't grow in those substrates, but they grow a lot better when you provide them with some nutrients like actual dirt, the thing that plants grow in outside. You can actually take that, throw it into your aquarium, and grow some plants. Now, the catch with dirt is you need to cap it with sand, and it can be kind of messy to work with. So back in the day, I used to use dirt in my tanks, cap it with either sand or gravel, and plants grew fairly well. In the more recent times, this product, Aquasoil, has become available. And all Aquasoil is it's basically kind of like a clay or volcanic mineral that's been compressed into these little pellets. They're enriched with minerals and nutrients, stuff that plants need to grow. After they're compressed into these little pellets, they're baked so that all those nutrients stay within these pellets, and also so that when you put the pellets underwater, they don't disintegrate and turn back into that clay or dirt form. So let's talk about some pros of using Aquasoil. I already mentioned the fact that it's really easy to work with. It doesn't muck up your water column, which is really great. Another pro to using Aquasoil is that it's an extremely porous material. It has a lot of surface area to volume ratio, and that makes it an extremely good surface for beneficial bacteria to grow on. Another pro to being porous like that is that it's not just like a dead area under your tank. Water can flow through it, which is even better for the beneficial bacteria. Just kind of helps to keep things flowing a little bit more smooth in your aquarium. Most importantly, Aquasoil is terrific at growing aquarium plants. That porous surface that I mentioned, it's really good for roots to kind of grip onto. And then because they're pellets, the roots also have an easy time expanding in between them and just forming like a really healthy root bundle, which helps them to grow nice and big. Unlike actual dirt, you can pile up Aquasoil really thick without having to worry about it compacting and maybe rotting on the deeper end, which is an advantage for allowing plants to root in really deep. But it's also an advantage from an aquascaping perspective. If you're setting up a tank that for whatever reason you want to have the back a lot higher and sloped up, then you can pile that substrate pretty much as high as you can stack it. The last pro of Aquasoil is that it can alter water parameters a little bit. Now, that's also the first con that I want to talk about, is that it can alter water parameters a little bit. And so I'll go into more detail about that later. Another con to Aquasoil is that it's very expensive. It's way more expensive than dirt. You can go outside and find dirt for free in your backyard, or you can go to the landscaping or hardware store and buy a huge bag of it for next to nothing. Aquasoil is gonna run you big bucks. You know, a decent sized bag of it is maybe 30 bucks. And if you were setting up a tank like this, you know, a 6-foot tank with soil everywhere, you know, I got sand, so I didn't spend as much on soil. But if you were doing the whole thing with soil, then you could be looking at something like 10 or 12 bags. That's a few $100 just to provide soil for your tank. Another downside to aquasoil is that there's certain species of fish that you wouldn't really want to mix in with aquasoil, like burrowing fish. That being said, you can put aquasoil in the back and then sand in the front. Most of the burrowers do prefer to use sand anyways. So like I got this whiptail catfish in here, and he never hangs out in the plants or the soil in the back. It's always up in the sand, so not a big deal. But that's a risk you're taking. Like if this guy had decided that he didn't like the sand and he preferred the soil, then he would be creating a huge mess in the back of the tank. The last con is something that other people talk about, which I think is kind of irrelevant anyways, but the fact that aquasoil is hard to clean out. So it's not like gravel where you can take a gravel vac and just kind of get in there and start siphoning out all that gunk. Because aquasoil is porous, it's light. And that means that when the water starts flowing up that gravel vac, it's going to pull all that soil up with the debris, unlike the gravel, which stays at the bottom, allowing the debris to float up. But the reason I say that's irrelevant is because the whole reason you have planted soil, aquasoil, is to grow plants, right? So you don't want to be sticking that gravel vac in there, ripping up all those roots. You want to just let the plants do their thing in the aquasoil. How much aquasoil do you need for your fish tank? Well, the general rule of thumb is about 1 pound per gallon of water, and that should balance out to be about 1 to 3 inch depth. If you're thinking metric, that's going to be about 2.5 to 7.5 centimeters deep. I would recommend that you go on the deeper end of that spectrum because it's very difficult to use your forceps and stick the plants in a shallow soil bed. They just have that tendency to want to float up. Naturally, the amount of soil you need for your tank is going to vary depending on the shape of your tank. So a tall, narrow tank like a 55 gallon, for example, would be on the lower end of that spectrum that I just mentioned. And then a shallow tank with a large footprint is going to use much more soil than that tall, narrow tank. So if like you were setting up plants in a frag tank, for example, you would need maybe like 3 times the amount of soil per gallon compared to that 55 gallon. Does aquasoil leach ammonia? This is one of the biggest concerns that people have about using aquasoil. The fact that it does leach a little bit of ammonia, especially in the beginning. There's certain types of aquasoil as well, like ADA Amazonia, that are known for leaching more ammonia, and that's probably just the result of the fact that those higher nutrient aquasoils have more nutrients to leach out. The reason that it leaches ammonia specifically is because aquasoil's enriched with ammoniacal nitrogen. It's just a fancy way of saying fertilizer, ammoniacal nitrogen. It's nitrogen provided in the form of ammonia, and then when you fill the tank up, that ammonia leaches out. But this is really only going to be happening for the first couple weeks of the aquarium's lifespan, and it's particularly noticeable when you have an uncycled tank. And so that combination of things really gets people alarmed, seeing this ammonia leaching and not having any way to buffer it in the beginning. After a few weeks, when nitrifying bacteria are established in your aquarium, it's not really a big deal because the amount of beneficial bacteria in an established tank can totally handle the level of ammonia leached out by soil. If the leaching were to occur 4 or 8 weeks later, you might not even notice it because all of that ammonia is being converted to nitrites and then nitrates, and your plants are going to consume those nitrates out of the water column. So in some ways, having this ammonia leach in the beginning is actually a beneficial thing because it's giving your tank some ammonia to start the nitrogen cycle. Do I need to cap my aquasoil? No, you don't need to cap your aquasoil with sand. The aqua soil is designed to be in the tank. It's not going to float up and splash out everywhere. You don't need to cap it with sand. However, some people really love the way that sand looks. It is a nice substrate. I think it is very aesthetically pleasing. Why I often mix plants in the back with sand in the front, because it is a crisp finish, but there's no need to do it if you don't want to. Does Aquasoil lower the KH of your aquarium water? Yes, it does lower the KH, but it's kind of dependent on what your water parameters already are. If you have relatively high KH, then it's not likely for Aquasoil to make a big difference in your water. Where I live, our tap water maybe has like 1 degree of carbonate hardness, and that is low enough that Aquasoil can pretty much deplete it. So the way that that works is the Aquasoil releases hydrogen ions, and basically all that is they're like little acidic particles. And so basically that KH and hydrogen ions kind of blend together and cancel each other out. And so you'll notice as the Aquasoil releases these hydrogen ions, the KH goes down, but it also prevents drastic swings in your pH. Where this becomes an issue is if you don't have any KH and it's releasing those hydrogen ions, then your pH is going to go down, 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 down. And that's exactly why KH is known to buffer your water. It prevents those big changes in pH. So if you're using Aquasoil in really soft water, then it's important to recognize that you do want to buffer your water. In this tank, I'm using Seachem Equilibrium and alkaline buffer. That's how I maintain a good kind of middle ground of hardness, because my Bosemani rainbows don't like really soft tap water. And where this problem can further compound is if you're using CO2 in really soft tap water with Aquasoil, it can just cause the pH to drop off the edge of a cliff during the day and then shoot back up at night. So using Aquasoil, you got to be a little bit aware of water parameter issues and how that relates to your tank. If you don't know what I'm talking about, pH, GH, KH, then check out this video in the description that goes into a lot of detail about how these three play off of each other. Should I rinse Aquasoil? Nope, there's no need to rinse Aquasoil. A lot of the bags on the back will say that you should. In my opinion, it's more trouble than it's worth. As soon as you start agitating the stuff in a bucket, you're going to squish it and create more debris that needs to be cleaned up. It's best to just stick it in your tank. The one exception I'd say is Seachem fluorite. That stuff is super dirty. It's very, very clay heavy, unlike a lot of the other pellets, which kind of strike me more as like volcanic minerals. But Seachem fluorite will just run tons of dirty clay water off of it. And the best way to rinse it out is to just get a bucket, drill a bunch of holes in the bottom of the bucket that are small enough to prevent the substrate from falling through, but big enough that you can kind of agitate it and rinse it out. You'll see tons and tons of gunk flowing out of here. And you don't need to have the water running out completely clear, because it is dirt after all. And when you're like rinsing it and agitating it, you're always going to be like rubbing it in the way that little chunks will fall off and cloud up the water a bit. So just make sure that it's like 90% clearer than when you first started rinsing it. Can you mix different types of Aquasoils? Yes, you can definitely mix different types of Aquasoils. I find it pretty funny that on the back of most brands of Aquasoil, it will say like, this product should not be mixed with other types of soil because it will ensure that it deteriorates faster, or this and that. And that's really kind of silly. I think it's just their way of saying, you know, once you buy my product, stick with me and don't buy anyone else's stuff. At the end of the day, they're almost identical, right? Like, they're produced the same way. They're just little pellets. and mixing two companies together isn't going to cause one of them to break down faster. That's definitely not the case. Can you reuse Aquasoil? Yes, you can definitely reuse Aquasoil. Kind of in line with the last bullet point I was talking about. Can you mix them? In my garage, I have a huge tote full of Aquasoil that I've collected from various aquariums that I ripped down for clients, people who are like moving out of town or don't want their fish tanks anymore. Then I take their Aquasoil, I dry it out, and then I put it in this bin, and then I use it for new setups around the house or for other clients who are a little more budget conscious and don't want to spend tons of money. You can throw in some root tabs, or if you have like the pill root tabs, you can break them apart and scatter all of that fine material along the bottom of the tank and toss in some Aquasoil on top of that. And even if it's used, your plants will grow like crazy. Check out this one tank here that's using used Aquasoil, completely fine. Plants are growing really, really well. And something else you can do to kind of alleviate some of the nutrient depletion from the soil, besides root tabs, is liquid fertilizer. How often do you need to replace Aquasoil? So, like I already mentioned, you can definitely be reusing Aquasoil. It's completely fine. And maybe there's like a 10-year limit on how long this stuff will last before it starts to really break down and kind of convert from that pellet form into that crushed, like actual dirt form. But as far as like a lot of people are saying you need to change this out every 6 months to 12 months, that's absolutely not true. I've had tanks running for like 6, maybe 7 years using the same Aquasoil, and I definitely wouldn't rescape a tank just with the purpose of changing out the soil. If you want to rescape your tank because it's time for a different look, then sure, go ahead and change out your Aquasoil. Maybe keep some of the old stuff because it's got a lot of that beneficial bacteria, and then pour in like 80% new stuff. Last but not least, how do you pick the perfect Aquasoil for your aquarium? Unfortunately, it's not such a straightforward answer. If you watched my liquid fertilizer video, I had this really nice chart that showed all the different nutrients that each fertilizer had, and then I broke it down by price, like what bang for your buck are you getting using each one, and what different types of nutrients are you missing in this one versus that. Unfortunately, I can't do that with Aquasoil because these companies don't make the information available. I don't know what nutrients are in each one. So I'm going to have to take a little bit of a guess as a consumer. The only option we really have is to do a test, to have like 20 different fish tanks with the same light, the same water, and just different soil growing the same types of plants to see which ones outperform the others. I don't really have space or the time to do that, but what I can say is over the years, I've used many, many different types of Aquasoil, and I know that they all perform roughly the same. So my recommendation is to just get whatever's on sale. The biggest thing to think about is the difference in texture. So something like sea chem fluorite is going to do a fabulous job at growing plants, but it does have some sharp edges to it, so it's maybe not ideal for fish like cory cats. Otherwise, most of the other types are going to be very, very similar. Maybe with one exception, ADA Amazonia is probably a lot stronger than the other types of Aquasoils. That being said, we're just guessing based off of the fact that it leaches higher amounts of ammonia, a sign that it's got more nitrogen in there for the plants. At the end of the day, I'm just going to get whatever's cheapest. I go online on Amazon and usually buy Landon Aquasoil. You can get a little bit of a deal if you buy them in groups of 4. Sometimes, like your local fish store, or even the big box ones, will be trying to get rid of fluval stratum, So that can go on sale for pretty cheap sometimes. Here we have this table that I put together with some of the big names that produce soil. You can see you buy a little bit more and you get a little bit of a better deal. They're all fairly similarly priced. EDA Amazonia version 2 is a little bit more expensive, but that's also supposed to be like the highest end soil you can buy from a company that specializes in planted tanks. You know, that's all they produce, really high end gear. And then on the lower end, you have Caribsea Eco Complete. I've highlighted that in blue because it comes with water in the bag and beneficial bacteria. So, you know, you're not just buying soil at that price. So it's not really a fair comparison, but I thought I'd throw that in because it's a cool product. Otherwise, another cheap one, Seachem Fluorite. A lot of people in the high end, like high-tech aquascaping world, talk smack about it, but I think it's a very good product. The only one on here I'd be a little skeptical of is Aquarium Plant and Shrimp. They just generally produce cheaper products. I can't say for sure because I've never used this one, but yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Unfortunately, like I already mentioned, these companies aren't releasing the nutritional value of their soils, which is unfortunate because what I'd really like to do is calculate price per gram of nitrogen, which is like the ultimate sign of bang for buck. So yeah, unfortunately, we're gonna have to take a little bit of a guess as a consumer on this one. What's your favorite type of Aquasoil? Do you have bad or good experiences using Aquasoil? Leave a comment below. I'd like to know what you think. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. I appreciate your support for the channel. I also hope that you learned something. If you find my content useful and valuable, please engage with it, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Helps me to grow my channel, which will in turn help you because I'll create more useful content. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, see ya.